I am back with This Week at Tassi, my weekly news roundup. Almost ran out of time this week, but I definitely wanted to get it done. Talking over the bigger stories of the week that I've either covered or not covered, and then with a little bit about what I'm playing and such right now. Interesting week. We will start off with what was definitely the biggest story, I think, of the week, the PSN outage, which pretty unusually lasted a full 24 hours, almost to the minute, which is a really big deal for a service like that, given that this is actually the longest outage we've seen from PSN since 2014. That was the, you may recall, Lizard Squad attack over Christmas, where I think it was down for like 3 days. And then back in 2011, there was the incredibly infamous, I think it was 23 day outage of PSN, which was it was the result of a hack and like kind of unlike anything we've ever really seen before and have not seen since. By comparison, I guess a 24-hour outage is not the biggest of deals, but all of these games have like limited time events running in some form or another, whether it's a weekend, a week, 2 weeks, something like that. So carving out an entire day where a portion of your player base just can't play is pretty disruptive. And also, I guess you're not able to earn purchases or whatever. So we got a lot of statements issued from different games. Some things got extended. If you're a Destiny person, they had to do an entirely new contest mode in the coming, I think, next week, because half of the 48 hours to run it was disabled for at least PlayStation. And it was a lot more than we got from Sony, who essentially didn't tweet for like 20 hours after they were like, yeah, there's a problem. Please reference our status page, and it would just like, you just get a line of red things being like, everything is down, and that was it. And we never heard anything else about that. The very end, when it came on literally exactly 24 hours later, they said it was an operational issue, and that is it. 2 words, the 2-word explanation for the entire thing. And the end result was that everybody gets PS Plus people get 5 extra days of the service. I don't quite get what that means. It's like if you were going to cancel it, instead of canceling on the 1st, it cancels on the 5th. But if you're just using it indefinitely, I don't know what that does for you, but whatever. I'm not expecting, a free game or something for a 24-hour outage, as annoying as it may be. This does not seem like it was a hack. Sony has been pretty public about, yes, someone hacked us. This isn't our fault. This data was exposed, this thing. Like, you kind of have to say that. You can't really just cover up a hack. That doesn't really benefit anyone. So, I don't know. Something internal went very, very wrong, and I'm sure people are in a lot of trouble, but we don't really have any idea what happened there. Speaking of Sony, there was a state of play this week that I think a lot of people got hyped for, and perhaps overly hyped. There were a few things, I didn't care too much about stuff in the show. Borderlands got a release date, September 23rd in the fall. It was noticeable, I guess, what wasn't there, which was a lot of kind of Sony exclusives or, their future live plans. And chief among them were projects from Bungie. There was a report like right before the state of play that Gummy Bears, the Bungie MOBA Smash Brothers multiplayer game, would show up at the show and get a 2025 release date. That did not happen. Not at all. I was a little questionable about that because it, Gummy Bears is, playable and stuff, but it doesn't seem like it's quite on the verge of a reveal yet, nor do I think it's coming out in 2025 when that, Bungie is launching Destiny 2 Frontiers, this year, and they are also, hopefully this year, and they are also allegedly launching Marathon in the end of 2025. I have a hard time believing that game is going to fully launch in 2025. But like, again, throw Gummy Bears in there, and you're like, what, really? So that didn't happen at all. Also not present was Marathon. There is going to be Marathon stuff like this spring. Like, this is not exactly news, but this seemed a little early, just based on what I've heard. Like, this is still very much winter, and it's definitely going to be spring, whether that's March or April or whatever. I don't know. Obviously, we should be hearing more about it if it is allegedly coming out in 2025. I do think we're going to start seeing like alphas and betas and stuff for it before the end of the year, but a full release, we'll see. One more thing about gummy bears is that the game has kind of changed because one of the stipulations for Bungie getting bought by Sony was that all of their games would still be able to be fully multi-platform, which is why Destiny obviously was not taken off Xbox, but Marathon was, it's going to come out on Xbox too. It's a multi-platform game. Gummy Bears, they're getting around this because Sony carved out Bungie employees to make their own studio under Sony. So technically, it is now a Sony studio, not Sony studio, not a Bungie studio. So if they want that to be PlayStation exclusive, which I bet they probably do, that is a way of getting around that. Does not seem like that is going to be what happens with Marathon, but given how chopped up Bungie is getting these days, who knows? I guess, it remains to be seen. Moving on to the biggest game launch of the week, you could argue. Kingdom Come Deliverance was last week, right? That was our huge launch. That's doing really well, and probably better than this next game. That is Avowed. That launched technically in early access yesterday, and that was when the critic review embargo went up. I reviewed the game. I spent 50, 55, 60 hours playing it, somewhere in there, on 2 playthroughs. And this, I did a whole video about it yesterday, so you can see my full review there. Bottom line, I liked it quite a bit. I gave it a 9 out of 10. Average seems to be closer to an 8 out of 10. Last time I looked, user reviews were 82% positive or something like that. But so the reception here is good, not great, I would say. I don't think this is going to be like some game changing, like Xbox first party is back. Like, I think it's a solid entry, but looking at past Obsidian games, it's reviewing a little lower, at least, than, the Outer Worlds, old Pillars of Eternity games, Fallout New Vegas. Like, those are like mid to high 80s. This is like 79, 80, so, not as high there. And the problem with a game like this now, we have no real way to know if it's going to be a success or not, at least financially, because Xbox is never going to tell us. It is the number one selling game on Steam right now. That's all we know, but like, that's not super shocking given that it is, the biggest release right now, and people are having to pay like whatever it is, $90 for early access if they want to play it now. It's too early to look at concurrent player counts or something, because like early access concurrent on Steam is like 9,000. I don't know. But I think, tons of people are just waiting for it to drop on Game Pass. So obviously we're never going to get sales there. The only time we hear about, how games do on Xbox Game Pass is if Microsoft goes out of their way to brag about something. I'm reminded of Starfield, where they're like, this is the most players any Bethesda game has ever gotten at launch. It's like, yeah, no shit. It's like free on Game Pass for everyone on Game Pass. So, yeah, whatever. So we'll see how that does. I certainly don't think this is going to end up in Game of the Year contention with this sort of reception, but I do think a lot of people are going to like it more than they think. I feel like this might be better received by players rather than critics, other than me. I don't know. I also don't think we're going to run into like Dragon Age, the Veilguard stuff, where it's like this big controversy about like, oh, this ruins the series, and oh, this is such a departure. And like, to me, it just feels like a fun stopgap in between Elder Scrolls games, like a little bit like New Vegas. Maybe it's not as good as New Vegas, but it kind of scratches that itch of exploration and combat and fantasy stuff in a way that I think is fun. So I'm not going to tell you to pay $90 for it, certainly. But if you're waiting for Game Pass, definitely give it a shot. The fourth story I found really fascinating this week, where it is Riot Games, where, I mean, how often do I ever talk about Riot Games, where they have pissed off like everybody in their community with all of this talk about removing Hextech chests, which I've come to understand was a way for players to build up a collection of skins for free. Like, these could be earned, and then they removed them from the game. That, combined with a bunch of other microtransactions that have really, really ramped up over time, including apparently things that cost hundreds of dollars in gacha-ish mechanics. Everybody's very mad about this. This is, communities are mad at developers all the time about stuff, but this one seems especially bad for Riot. And, looking into this a little more, the statements here are just so contradictory between, the Riot devs that just put out the statement on like why this happened, and then Mark Merrill, the co-founder, talking about Arcane and losing money. I'm going to read these statements because like they're so I don't know. They're just very disparate, and I feel like Riot internally is having a lot of identity crises that they have to deal with. This was a video after people were mad about the Hextech thing. As a free-to-play game, skins are the primary way League pays its bills. They're what gives us the ability to continue to develop the game and the wider ecosystem, from adding new game modes to updates to Summoner's Rift cinematics, live events for Worlds, patch-to-patch balance, and much longer-term investments for League in the future. The number of people playing League has been pretty stable over recent years. Our cost to maintain and develop League has been pretty stable over time too. Ensuring we have an equally sustainable income coming in to reinvest in the game, however, has frankly been more of a challenge. Okay, so the takeaway there is, people are getting too much stuff for free. That unbalances our economics because we need people to buy more stuff to actually support the game. And if you don't do that, the game is not getting the support it needs. So, okay, I get why people want their free stuff back. And that was probably, if they was unbalancing their economy, that was their screw up in the first place. But you go back in time a little bit to when there were reports about how Arcane cost $250 million to make, which is a lot. And so Mark Merrill was asked about this, and he's like, essentially like, meh. He says, these people think we make things like Arcane to sell skins, when in reality, we sell skins to make things like Arcane. Do we get everything right? No, but we are not focused on the short-term extraction of profits. We are focused on delivering exceptional value to our audience over the long term, again and again and again. To be clear, Arcane crushed it for players, and so it crushed it for us. The message there is like, Arcane was so good, we don't really care what it costs, and we sell microtransactions in the game to fund projects that are really cool like Arcane. Of course, it's in direct conflict with what they just said about, like, literally they're like starving for cash to, pay the bills for the game. And on top of all of this, Riot has laid off hundreds of employees in the last year or so, which I'm sure, they're not wild about, this situation. And I remember when this budget was being discussed, there were like internal reports that like Riot people were like, this kind of sucks. And like, why are we sinking so much money into this when we, need this money for other stuff? So it's really contradictory. And like, obviously I would rather have Arcane than not Arcane, and whatever. I would, if Riot wants to spend $1 bazillion on it, go for it. But the problem is when they specifically give, a statement to the community that is in conflict with something their co-founder is saying. Like, it's very hard to take them seriously. And like, I don't even know if people know about that Arcane quote, but just the explanation alone is like, that didn't placate anyone. That kind of just made everyone even more mad. So that was a couple days ago. I'm not sure if anything has changed since then. I don't think they're making any mass changes to put this back. But yeah, so that was a very weird, not great situation for them, and that appears to be continually ongoing. In terms of what I'm playing, Destiny, I did catch up on all my Rivals challenges, or like the seasonal ones where you can do. I did like all of them in 90 minutes, and it was like I got like 2,000 currency to buy a page and a half of the battle pass. But yeah, mostly playing Destiny, doing Nether. I kind of have all of the guns I care about that currently exist in Nether. I ran the dungeon for the first time last night before they patched the exotic being able to actually drop. That was fun. I liked it. I'm not like a big fan of symbol stuff, which is like all the pyramid stuff. It was fine, and I like the boss encounters, especially the one with that's just the moving the lights thing is a little tedious because like there's barely even enemies, and it's just sort of, I don't know. I didn't love it. Obviously, it wasn't on contest, so it wasn't super hard or anything. I didn't really get any good loot. I got a bait and switch Envious Assassin shotgun, which is kind of funny. And I got the Warlock helmet. Really wanted the Warlock chest, but yeah. So I'll run that again when I have time and try to get the exotic. But that's what I was doing. Elsewhere, I literally just got out of Captain America: Brave New Worlds. This is not. I don't usually cover movie, TV stuff here. Maybe I'll start. I don't know. It wasn't great. I've been reporting about how it's one of the lowest scored Marvel movies and the lowest ever on Metacritic. I don't know if that's true, but I don't know. It just didn't work as a cohesive whole. I'm not going to do a whole review here, but it's not exactly something I can recommend. I'll probably write an article about it tomorrow or something. But yeah, now I just wait for Thunderbolts, which I actually think Thunderbolts is going to be good. So yeah, so that's the week in news here-ish. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.